Imagine this. 3 empires. Unshakable, invincible. 1 minute, they're the envy of the world. Parades of silk and steel, ballrooms echoing with laughter, diplomats bowing low. The next, it's all ash. Kings dragged from their beds, their heads tumbling into baskets before roaring crowds. Tsars huddled in dank cellars, bullets ripping through the night, even their innocent children caught in the hail. Dictators scrambling onto planes, suitcases stuffed with pilfered gold, leaving behind a nation in flames. Chaos that swallows cities whole. Blood that soaks the cobblestones. And the body count. Millions fathers, mothers, dreamers arrest, in the name of change. What if I told you, the U.S., your country, right here in 2025, is tracing their footsteps? Not some vague echo, but step by bloody step, grievance by grievance. This isn't a dusty history lesson from a forgotten textbook. This is a warning, sharp as a blade. A blueprint, drawn in the ink of revolutions past. And here's the gut punch. We're not teetering on the edge, peering over into the abyss. No, we're in it. Knee-deep in stage 4, with stages 5 and 6 barreling down like a freight train in the dead of night, lights flashing, horns screaming. You can hear it, can't you? That low rumble building under your feet? Buckle up, because revolutions aren't fairy tales with happy endings or Hollywood montages of heroic uprisings. They're math-cold, relentless patterns etched in fire and bone. And the elites at the top. They're ones sipping champagne in their towers. They never see it coming. They laugh it off, pat each other on the back, whisper about how the little people could never touch them. They're wrong then. They're wrong now. Let's crack the code together before the lock snaps shut, before it's too late for any of us. First off, let's get crystal clear. What is a revolution really? Not your weekend protest with signs and chants that fade by Monday? Not a riot sparked by a bad tweet or a viral video that burns hot and dies cold? And definitely not some polite political shuffle where one suit replaces another in the same old game. No old revolution is when the whole damn system shatters like glass under a hammer. The foundations crack, the pillars topple, and what's left? A void, filled not with light, but with something uglier, hungrier, often a tyranny, twice as brutal as what came before, poverty. That's the constant hum of history. It's always been there, grinding people down from the pharaohs to the factory floors. Revolutions don't spark from empty bellies alone. They ignite when hope crashes headlong into reality. When you wake up one day and know, bone deep, that you deserve better than this grind. This cage but the doors bolted shut by a handful of elites who hoard the keys. When the system's not just broken, it's rigged from the jump. A casino where the house always wins, and the players foot the bill. And the final straw, when you lose all faith that reform is even possible. When you stare at the ballot box, the courthouse, the gleaming halls of power, and see nothing but mirrors reflecting back the same corrupt faces. Peaceful change, a mirage. So violent upheaval becomes not just inevitably, becomes necessary. John F. Kennedy put it sharper than a switchblade. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. He said that in 1962, staring down his own storms, but damn if it doesn't echo through the ages. France, Russia, Cuba. 3 gut-wrenching hits from the last 250-year spanning continents, ideologies, empires, large and small. Different flavors of hell, but the same script. The exact same 6-stage playbook. No ad-libs, no plot twists. Just the grind of history, turning the wheel. Let's replay the tape, scene by scene. Watch how it unfolds. Feel the noose tightening, and then turn the lens on us. Now we will talk about Act 1, France, 1789. The party's over at Versailles. Close your eyes for a second. Picture Paris in the 1780s, the beating heart of the Enlightenment. A city alive with ideas that could light the world. Cafes spilling onto cobblestone streets, buzzing with the ghosts of Voltaire and Rousseau. Philosophers trading barbs over absinthe and enlightenment. French is the language of courts and conquests. The tongue every king from Madrid to Moscow mangles, just to sound sophisticated. Art blooms like never before, paintings that capture the soul, symphonies that stir the blood. Science, they're mapping the stars, taming lightning. This is Europe's crown jewel, a nation at its zenith. And at the center, King Louis XVI, plump and pious, perched on a throne that's held for 800 unbroken years. It feels eternal, unshakable, like the sun rising over the Seine. But zoom in closer, way closer. Beneath the powdered wigs and perfumed ball gowns, the rot's already eating the marrow from the bones. It's stage 1, the foundation fracture, the Great Divide. France in 1789 to 27 million souls, neatly sliced into 3 estates like a grotesque pie. The top slice, just 1.5% the clergy in their velvet robes and the nobility in their feathered hats. They own 35% of the arable land. the vineyards, the chateaux that stretch like jewels across the countryside. And taxes. Zero. Nada. They hunt on peasant fields as if it's sport, demand free labor from the serfs at their gates, feast on roast pheasant and vintage Bordeaux, while the rest scrape by on crusts. The bottom 98.5%. Everyone else, farmers bent double in the mud, artisans coughing in garrots, merchants haggling for pennies. They own the scraps, pay every sou, shoulder the king's endless debts. Let that sink in. A handful of silk-stocking parasites bleeding the body dry. By 1788, it snaps. A brutal harvest rains that drown the wheat, frosts that blacken the vines, and suddenly bread, the lifeblood of the poor, doubles in price overnight. Bread isn't a luxury. It's 88% of a peasant's daily budget. Families huddle in hovels, children with ribs like ladder rungs, watching parents weaken by the day. Riots flicker in the shadows, women storming bakeries, mobs overturning carts. But up at Versailles, the party rages on. Lavish operas, fireworks spelling the king's name in the sky, nobles gambling fortunes on a whim. The gap isn't just economic anymore, it's a chasm, a scream across class lines. The elites aren't just rich, they're blind, floating in a bubble of their own making. Enter stage 2. The clown's in charge, Louis XVI. Not a monster, mind you. Soft-hearted, even loves his locks, his hunts, his queen. But decisive, like a jellyfish in a storm. France is bankrupt, drowning in debt from a century of glory. Hungry wars think, the 7 Years' War. Or bankrolling our American Revolution across the Atlantic, pouring gold into muskets and ideals. Billions owed, creditors howling at the gates. Louis's big fix: borrow more. Raise taxes, but only on the third estate. The ones already buckling? The nobles. Heaven forbid we chip in. The clergy? God's work doesn't pay tithes. Every reform he floats gets stranglered in committee by the very hands it would lighten. Sound familiar? The people with power would rather watch the kingdom burn than surrender a single privilege. Debt spirals into oblivion. Starvation knocks louder. The crown's not governing, it's presiding over a funeral. Crisis doesn't creep, it explodes. Spring, 1789. Louis, desperate, dusts off the Estates General, that dusty old assembly of reps from all three estates. Hasn't met in 175 years, like calling a family reunion after 2 generations of feuds. He figures it'll legitimize his tax hikes, wave a magic wand over the mess. Wrong? Dead wrong. Stage 3 kicks in. The suits flip the table. The third estate isn't just peasants. It's the rising middle lawyers with leather-bound tomes, merchants with ledgers fat from trade, educated men who read the pamphlets, dream of rights. They show up demanding equality. 1 vote per head, not per estate. Why? Because the old way gives the clergy and nobles a permanent 2-to-1 lock. Louis balks, stalls, locks them out. Boom. June 17th, 1789. The Third Estate says, screw it, declares itself, the National Assembly, the true voice of France. They hole up in a royal tennis court, sweat-soaked and defiant, and swear the tennis court oathed. We won't budge until there's a constitution, until the king's word bends to the people's will. This is the pivot, the moment the stable classy, ones who oil the machine, turns the wrench on it. Lawyers who argued for the crown now draft its obituary. Merchants who profited from the ports now blockade the palace. When the educated, the ambitious, the ones who should prop up the system, call it illegitimate. That's the death knell. Revolution isn't a peasant revolt anymore. It's a full-spectrum war. Faith evaporates like morning mist. Stage 4. Institutions crumble. The monarchy, a relic. The church, a landlord. Investments. The courts, puppets on noble strings. July 14th. The spark. Parisians starving, seething storm the Bastille, that hulking fortress prison symbolizing royal tyranny. Guards cut down, heads paraded on pikes, through streets slick with rain and rage. The crowd's roar shakes the stones. Vive la nation, the National Assembly. They seize the moment, abolish feudal dues, nationalize church lands, ink the Declaration of the Rights of Man. Liberty, equality, fraternity. The air tastes of gunpowder and possibility. But it's not enough. The hunger lingers. The debts mount. The radicals smell blood. Stage 5. The mob picks a leader. Enter Maximilian Robespierre and the Jacobin Pale, bespectacled firebrands, with guillotines in their eyes. They demand more. Purge the traitors, execute the king, redistribute every acre, every coin. The moderates dither, promising bread tomorrow. The Jacobin, they delivered vengeance today, and the masses, they flock. Why? Because failure breeds fury. The economy's still at corpse prices soar. Shops empty, whispers of conspiracy everywhere. Hunger makes extremists irresistible. Their promises hit like opium in the veins. January 21, 1793. Louis XVI, the king who never wanted this, climbs the scaffold in Revolution Square. The blade falls. Silence, then cheers. His wife, Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake. The mob jeers follows in October, her neck bared to the crowd's howl. Stage 6. Lights out. Chaos reigns. The reign of terror isn't a phase, it's a frenzy. From 1793 to 1794, the Committee of Public Safety Robespierre's iron fist turns France into a slaughterhouse. 40,000 executed. Nobles in their finery, priests clutching rosaries, even revolutionaries who blinked too slow. Neighbors denounce neighbors over a sideways glance. The guillotine, it runs like clockwork daily spectacles in Paris. Crowds picnicking on the blood-warm grass, children waving at the falling heads. Purifying the revolution. They call it mass murder, dressed as virtue. And the beast turns inward. As it always does, Robespierre himself climbs the stairs in July 1794, accused by the machine he built. His jaw shattered by grape shot, body dumped in a common grave. By 1799, France is a husky kanami. Gutted, borders aflame with war, the dream curdled to nightmare. Entered Napoleon Bonaparte, a Corsican upstart in a tricorn hat. He seizes power in a coup, crowns himself emperor, and drags Europe into 15 years of carnage. The revolution that dawned with liberty, equality, fraternity sets with bayonets and empire. Lesson 1, carved in French stone. When the divide yawns too wide, when leaders fumble the keys, when institutions turn to dust, revolution isn't a risk, it's gravity. And what rises from the rubble? Rarely the dawn you prayed for. Pause for a beat. Picture Versailles, gold cracking under peasant boots. Feel that itch in your chest. That's the gap. Growing, unchecked. Now jump to Act 2. Russia, 1917. The empire that froze solid. Fast forward 128 years. The world's a powder keg trenches, scarring Europe. Empires flexing like old men at a bar. Enter Russia, a frozen colossus sprawling from the Baltics, chill to the Pacific's roar. Tsar Nicholas II rules over 180 million souls, farmers in fur hats, Cossacks on wild steppes, intellectuals scribbling manifestos by candlelight. They've worn the crown for 300 years, a dynasty forged in Ivan the Terrible's blood. Palaces like the Winter Palace gleam with malachite and gold. Ballets in St. Petersburg dazzle czars and spies alike. On the surface, an empire that could swallow nations whole. But dig down through the snow. Through the Lysan the same poison festers, black and thick. Stage 1, the fracture. Lords and serfs in eternal winter. The nobility? They own it, vast estates like feudal kingdoms. Serfs bound to the soil since time immemorial. Freed in 1861, sure, but freedom means renting back the land at gouging rates, paying lords in sweat and silence. Peasants 80%ed Russia, huddle in esbas of mud and thatch, tilling frozen fields for crusts of black bread siddums. Factories belch smoke over workers chained to machines 14 hours a day. Wages a pittance, children as young as 6 feeding the looms. Safety, a joke, limbs lost to guillotines, lungs to coal dust. Meanwhile, the Tsar feasts in halls where caviar flows like rivers. Nobles hosts, balls costing more than a village earns in a decade. Silk gowns swirling to Tchaikovsky's strains. The Gap. Not just economic hits, medieval, a throwback to Tsars whipping backs for sport. Resentment simmers like vodka in a samovar. Stage 2. The Tsar who dreamed too big. Nicholas II, a tragic figure, devout to the point of delusion. He clings to divine right, like a drowning man to driftwood. God anointed me. No mere mortal reforms needed. Out of touch. Like a hermit in a hurricane. 1905. Workers, peaceful, march to the Winter Palace, with petitions better pay, an end to the grind. Nicholas's guards. They open fire. Bloody Sunday. Hundreds mown down in the snow, red on white. Wives wailing over husbands' corpses, children scarred for life. Any lingering faith in the Little Father? Shredded, trampled under boots. Then comes the apocalypse. World War I, 1914. Russia plunges in, loyal to crumbling alliances. But the army? A shambles. Poorly equipped boys sent to die in mud, officers drunk on privilege, supply lines rotting like cold cabbage. Soldiers charge German lines without bullets, bayonets, against machine guns. Entire divisions surrender, waving white rags. By 1917, 3 million casualties, ghosts haunting the steppes. The economy? Collaptos factories, idle bread rationed to crumbs. And Nicholas Delata's tea, decisions warped by Rasputin, that leering holy man with eyes like coals, whispering to the Serena in the shadows. Corruption. The air's thick with the general skimming supplies, nobles hoarding grain. The throne isn't leading. It's decaying from within. February 1917. The dam breaks. Petrograd, St. Petersburg's wartime rename, boils over. Women in endless breadlines, mothers with babes at breast start the chant. Bread. Down with the autocracy. Workers pour in from factories, hammers raised. The Tsar sends troops to crush it, but the soldiers? Exhausted, starving, kin to the protesters, they drop rifles, join the march. Mutiny spreads like plague. Stage 3. The backbone breaks. When the army, the iron spine of empire, refuses to snap the people's necks, the regime's done. The Duma, Russia's shaky parliament, wired from irrelevance, demands Nicholas abdicate. He does an March 15, 1917, not with thunder, but a whimper, signs a paper in a railway car, family bundled away like luggage. 300 years of Romanov thunder. Ends in ink and exile. A provisional government stumbles in liberals, moderates promising the moon, reforms, elections, a constitution to drag Russia into the 20th century. They free the press, amnesty prisoners, even flirt with land shares. But fatal blunder. They chain the nation to the war's corpse. One more push, they say. Soldiers. They crave peace, not more meat for the grinder. People. Food. Now, not speeches. The government delivers zilcher drags, inflation bites, factories, sees. Stage 4. Hope's last gasp. Legitimacy. A ghost, haunting empty halls. The provisional crews seen as puppets weak, foreign tide, out of their depths. Whispers turn to roars. They're no better than the Tsar. Into that vacuum slithers the beast. Stage 5. The Red Whisper. Vladimir Lenin, exiled firebrand with a goatee like a dagger, sneaks back from Switzerland in a sealed, trained German-funded irony's gift. He doesn't whisper. He thunders 3 promises. Peace. Land. Bread. Simple as a sickle's swing. The Bolsheviks, not ragtag dreamers of machine, disciplined, cells in every barracks and breadline. Pamphlets rained like autumn leaves. October 25, 1917, Julian calendar November, by ours. The coup. Red Guards stormed the Winter Palace. That pastel fairy tale turned fortress. Cannon fire echoes off the Neva. The provisional ministers. Arrested in evening coats, blinking at their doom. The whole thing. Less than 24 hours. Almost bloodless. On the night but oh, the dawn. Stage 6. The Red Flood. Chaos doesn't follow revolution. It is the revolution. Civil war erupts. 1918 to 1922. Reds Bolsheviks versus whites monarchists. Liberals. Anyone with a grudge. Foreign boots. 2 British. French. Americans meddling on the edges. Total war. Trenches in Siberia. Partisans in the Urals. 10 million Mao down famine gnaws. The survivors. Typhus reaps the weak. The Cheka, Lenin's secret police, becomes death's hive. Villages torched for counter-revolutionary whispers. Intellectuals dragged to cellars. July 1980. Nicholas and his family Sartarina, daughters in white dresses. The hemophiliac heir, huddled in a Yekaterinburg basement. Bullets first, then bayonets, to finish the screams. Bodies dumped in a mine shaft, acid poured to erase the evidence. Lenin wins, but at what cost? Peace Brest-Litovsk surrender. Humiliating land carved off to Germany. Land collectivization, seeds, future famines, bread, rationed to starvation, cities, half-empty tombs. By 1924, Lenin strokes out. Stalin rises, purging 20 million more in gulags and grain requisitions. The revolution that vowed workers' paradise delivers barbed wire and bones. Lesson 2. Whispered on Russian winds. When incompetence meets the cannon's roar. When the military melts away, a spark can topple titans in months. In the new order. It doesn't build bridges. It burns them. Act 3. Cuba, 1959. Paradise lost in flames. Now. Leap to 1959. The world's bipolar, Cold War, shadows lengthening, rockets gleaming in silos. Cuba. No frozen tundra or powdered court. This is the tropics fever dream. Havana, the Monte Carlo of the Caribbean. A neon pulse of rum and rhythm. American tourists in linen suits, flooding in for the casino's clink, the beaches sway, the nights that never end. Economy. One of Latin America's gem sugar barons, rolling in green. Factories humming. Doctors per capita, rivaling the states. Mobsters like Meyer Lansky run the tables. But hey, it's business. Prospus, polished. A postcard from paradise. But flip it over, read the fine print, and the fissures run deep, cracks widening under the sun. Stage 1. Havana High versus Hillbilly Hell. The glamour skin deep. Wealth pools in Havanas, harbors. Among Batista's cronies and Yankee execs, casinos rake millions. Profits jet north or line elite pockets. Rural Cuba, a different planet. Eastern hills, where sugar plantations chain families to cane fields, backs breaking for pennies. No clinics for the malaria, no schools for the illiterate, no roads beyond the mud. American firms own the prime land, extracting wealth like ticks on a dog. The divide stark as a spotlight. Nightclub crooners in tuxes versus barefoot kids scavenging scraps. Resentment doesn't simmer. It steams, hot and thick. Stage 2. The Puppet Dictator's Dance. Fulgencio Batista, sergeant turned strongman, seizes power in a 1952 coup. Tanks rolling, elections vaporized. He rules by decree, a cigar-chomping tyrant with a smile for the cameras. Corruption. The air's laced with IT police badges for sale, courts twisting for bribes. Opponents vanishing into interrogation rooms with screams that echo till dawn. American mob. They bankroll the bells, pay Batista his cut, 30% skim on every slot machine. Protests met with billy clubs and bullets. Secret police prowl universities, torture students for subversive notes. The government not a shield for the people. It's a sieve, draining the island dry for a cabal of thieves. Rage builds quiet at first, in bars where exiles mutter, in mountains where farmers sharpen machetes. Especially among the young, the educated, lawyers seeing justice auctioned, teachers watching dreams deported. Stage 3. The lawyer lights the fuse. Fidel Castro. Not some wild-eyed peasant, but a Havana U law grad from a landowning clan could have been sipping daiquiris with the elite. Instead, he sees the rot, smells the blood money. 1953. He leads 160 rebels against the Moncada barracks. In Santiago Armory, raid to spark the uprising. It flops spectacularly. Batista's troops slaughter most. Survivors hauled to trial. But Fidel, in the dock, he doesn't beg. He thunders a 4-hour speech smuggled out, as history will absolve me, a manifesto torching corruption. Promising land, dignity, trials for the tyrants. It circulates like samizdat, igniting hearts. Amnesty in 1955, publicity stunt by Batista freezing. Exile to Mexico. Regroups with Che Guevara, that asthmatic Argentine doctor with eyes like revolutions. December 1956. The yacht Grandma beaches. 82 men, on Cuba's eastern shoreline, lashed seasick. Batista's forces ambush. Machine guns chew the mangroves. Only 20 stagger out alive, fleeing to the Sierra Maestra's emerald peaks. Most leaders would have folded, tails between legs. Fidel? He turns caves into command posts, radios into lifelines. Builds slow, wins peasant hearts with clinics and hammocks, schools under stars. The middle-class urbanites, sick of the sleestoons in, sends cash, hides agents. When the haves start hating the game, the board flips. Stage 4. The beast turns on itself. Batista doubles down brutalities, boomerang. He raises villages suspected of rebel aid, widows wailing over smoldering huts. That births more fighters, sons avenged, fathers, daughters, load rifles, police torture, a student leader. Campuses erupt. Havana, you becomes a battleground, Molotovs arcing through tear gas. The urban underground blooms, sabotage cells, bombing bridges, assassinating snitches. Even the U.S. Batista's sugar daddy starts wincing at the headlines, cuts arms, shipments. When your big brother abandons the playground brawl, your meet faith in the regime. Not crumbled obliterated elections? Farce. Courts. Mockery. The island's one heartbeat. Batista out. Stage 5. The beard goes viral. 1958. Momentum snowballs. Castro's guerrilla army now thousands strong. Beards wild as the hills picks off outposts. It broadcasts victories on clunky radios that reach Miami. Urban cell strike. Havana harbor sabotaged. Sugar mills torched. Batista's forces. Crumbling soldiers. Desert en masse. Officers flee with looted vaults. Mistresses in tow. Morale joke. January 1st, 1959. The tipping point. Rebels converge on Santa Clara. Batista bolts to the Dominican Republic. $300 million. Stuffed in diplomatic pouches. January 8th. Fidel enters Havana triumphant. Jeep convoy snaking through, cheering millions. Beards and rifles raised like icons. The middle class that bankrolled him, they weep in the streets, imagining democracy's dawn. Stage 6. The sweet lie sours. The honeymoon, a cruel tease. Castro mouths, elections, free press, then a mass cracks. Political foes rounded up. Show trials in sports stadiums. Firing squads at dawn, hundreds in the first months. Cheers from the vengeful crowd. Presses shuddered. Editors exiled. Nationalizations sweep like a scythe. Factories to the state. Farms collectivized. Yankee assets, cease Bay of Pigs, invasion brews in response. The middle-class dreamers who hated Batista. They learn the hard way. Revolutions, a jealous lover. Prisons swell with counter-revolutionary poets, priests, the merely skeptical. Thousands flee on rafts to Florida, leaving mansions to squatters. Cuba hardens into communism's forge. Fidel rules till 2008. Raul to 2018. A 60-year stranglehold. Liberation? It delivered ration books and repression. Poverty's iron crown where paradise once winked. Lesson 3, etched in Cuban cigar ash. Even in a land of plenty, when corruption festers and brutality bites back, the spark finds tinder. And the victors, they don't free the cage. They weld it shut. The universal blueprint. 3 tomes, 1 truth. 3 tailies, 3 tomes. 4 toppled thrones. France's scaffold, blade whispering through necks. Russia's cellars, echoes of family, pleas, drowned in gunfire. Cuba's firing walls. Dawn light on blindfolds. Different soils, European salons. Siberian snows. Caribbean snavs. Different banners. Liberty's tricolor, hammer and sickle, red, gorilla green. But the script? Identical. 6 stages. Inexorable as tides. The divide deepens. Wealth the moat no bridge spans. Leaders flop like fish on dry docks. Corruption, the hook in their gills. The middle the glue. The gears flips, radicalized by dashed dreams. Faith flees institutions like rats from a blaze. Legitimacy's a lie to threadbare to stitch. The mob mobilizes behind a banner, any banner that vows justice, vengeance, a dawn worth dying for. And the throne topples, not with a bang, but a cascade into the abyss. Revolutions vow paradise. Bread for all, chains for the chained. They deliver pyres, blood in the gutters, purges that circle like wolves. Moderates the reformers who lit the fuse. First course on the table, throat slit for betrayal. Elites. Dessert, savored slew. The people who marched for freedom. They inherit shackles forged hotter. Because revolutions aren't led by builders. They're seized by destroyers, extremists who thrive on the shatter, not the mend. History's pattern, the cure is deadlier than the disease. But you're leaning back now, arms crossed. That Americans shield up. Not here, not us. We're exceptional democracy's fortress, melting pot of might. Bulletproof the elites, say it too. In Davos suites, in Capitol cloisters. Capitalism, it's the lullaby. The sang in Versailles. The hymn Nicholas hummed in his railcar. The cha-cha Batista danced too. All dust now. All echoes. The pattern doesn't bend for borders or anthems. It just rolls on. And us, we're not skirting the edge. We're etched in it, deeper than they ever were. Let's map the mirror. 2025. Your newsfeed. Your empty fridge. Your fraying nerves. Feel the fit. The American echo. Stage by stage. Mirror to madness. Stage 1. The billionaire chasm. Cast your mind back not far. Just 45 years. 1980. The top 1%, your neighbors, with the successful uncles, hoarded 8% of the pie. Modest. Manageable. Today, 32%. A third of every dollar earned, every home built, every innovation spark funneled to a sliver. Worse than Lewis's tax-free lords, wider than the czar's surf-lord gulf. Drill deeper. The top 0.1%, just 130,000 households. Give or take on more wealth than the bottom 90%, 117 million of us scraping by. Billionaires, they're not discreet anymore. Private jets, carving contrails to private islands. Mega yachts, longer than football fields. Joyrides to the edge of space while you crunch numbers for a studio walk-up. The middle, squeezed till the pips. Squeak home's a myth for millennials. Healthcare, a dice roll with bankruptcy odds. College, a noose of debt around necks that dreamed of degrees. Gig economy grind. Drive till dawn for pennies. Code till eyes bleed for bonuses that vanish. The rage? It's not abstract. It's visceral tweets, turning to torches. Polls pulsing with eat the rich. Justified, hell yes. The divide isn't a statistic. It's a slap. Daily. Stage 2. DC's Circus of Crooks. Trust. A relic, gathering dust in civics museums. Congress. 15% approval, lower than a root canal. Supreme Court? Once marble impartiality, now a partisan piñata justices, grilled like suspects. Elections, half the country screams stolen. From 2020 shat at the other, half brands every dissent. A coup. Insider trading. Congress members play the market like godstocks soar on whispers of bills they pen. Lobbyists, they don't knock. They draft the laws in K Street suites. Corporations, the ghostwriters, nothing moves. Infrastructure crumbles, bridges creak like old bones, Rails rust while China zips. National debt, $36 trillion and climbing. Everest, no one's summiting. Problems scream for fixes. Opioid waves, drowning towns, wildfires, eating West Coast dreams, but gridlock reigns. Why the government doesn't serve voters, it kneels to donors. Red and blue ties, same silk pockets. When both sides reek of rot, when voters see the fix as fiction, respect dies. Authority, a hollow suit, flapping in the wind. Stage 3. The dreamers wake angry. The middle class America's beating heart. The ladder we all climbed. Now, hollowed out. A husk, the American dream, not dead zombified. Shambling through suburbs. College. Unaffordable. Extortion. $100,000. Tabs for philosophy degrees. That barista at Starbucks. Housing at casino. Prices balloon 50% in 5 years. Zillow. Billionaires cash out while you couch surf at 30. Healthcare. A vampire bankrupting families for insulin vials that cost pennies to make. Wages. Stagnant as a 90s mixtape, while stocks and real estate explode for the connected. Young folks or kids. Your niece is educated to the hilt. Laptops humming with promise. Poet student debt, a millstone. Entry jobs, ghosted by AI. Families delayed because affordable is a punchline. Engineers rage at H-1B. Floods undercutting their grind. Teachers burn out in underfunded classrooms. Chalk dust on calluses. When the winners, the lawyers, the coders, the ones who played by the rules, wake up losers. They don't shrug. They seethe. They scroll manifestos. They blame the billionaires gaming the code. The system that sold the dream and repossessed the receipt. Revolutions don't birth from the basement. They brew in the bachelor's pad, the cubicle, the coffee shop where baristas with MBS mutter, burn it down. Stage 4. The faith black hole. This is us, right now. November 2025. Screens glowing with the same old schism. Trust in media. Old-time nadir cable screamers peddling truth like snake oil. Social feeds algorithms feeding fury. Police, heroes to some, occupiers to others. Trust fractured along fault lines of badge and block. Elections sacred, right-turn circus. Half still chew on 2020's stolen bone. The other paints January 6th as holy war. Courts, no robes of justice partisan hacks. Rulings landing like partisan grenades. FBI, deep state boogeyman, or rogue elephant, depending on your tribe. Everything's lens-tinted, red versus blue. Echo chambers amplifying whispers to war cries. No shared truth, no common ground. 2. America's cheek bejowl, on the same soil, one flying Gadsden flags. The other rainbow banners waiting for the shove. France had its estates general farce. Russia, bloody Sundays, red snow, Cuba Batistas, midnight raids, U.S., the sparks anything. A contested 2024 hangover verdict. An economic hiccup recession whispers turning to roars. A cop cam going viral. Another George Floyd frozen in pixels. A politician's mic slip, or worsen, assassination's echo from Dallas, or Delhi Plaza. The kindling's bone-dry tumbleweeds of tension. We're just waiting for the match. In history, it doesn't whisper. It hisses. Stage 4 is the point of no return. Stage 5. The extremes arm up. Full blaze. Not yet, but the coals glow hot. Pieces slotting into place like a rifle's bolt. Left flank. Socialism's siren song swells. Tax the yachts. Medicare for all. Eat the rich. AOC. AOC echoes in halls. DSA cells multiplying like yeast. Rhetoric sharpens. Billionaires as vampires. Corporations as cancers. Right-wing authoritarians. Rise. Drain the swamp with a sledge. Strong men with MAGA capes. Vows of extra-legal reckonings. Militias drilling. In Idaho woods, both. Choruses harmonize on one note. The system's not fixable. It's fuel. Tear it down. Salt the earth. Build our utopia. Moderates? They're the awkward uncle at the family feud, mumbling compromise while the room ignites. Polls tick up. 30% on left-eyeing wealth seizures. 25% on right nodding to daylight tribunals. We're closer than cable news admits. A crash. A scandal. A stolen thunder and the crowd's crest. Hate the now. These voices promise to hammer. And hammers swing sweet in despair's dark. Stage 6. The reckoning. The unthinkable. The one exceptionalism swears off. But history, it cackles, rolls the reel. Chaos isn't riots, it's organization. Assassinations chaining like dominoes. Insurgents, ghosting, supply lines, the military fracturing oath to constitution or commander. Blue-starred units versus rebel reds. Supply chains snap, Walmart shelves bare, gas pumps dry, ATMs spitting error codes. Economy, freefall, trusts the currency, and its counterfeit. States secede in all but name. Texas Rangers, patrolling borders. California governors, eyeing independent pacts. Foreign wolves. They don't howl, they feast. Basin bankrolls. Blue states. Moscow arms. The heartland America's burn, their great game win. The night drags years. Famine in flyover. Sieges in cities. Foreign boots on sacred soil. Millions? Not a toll a tide. Fathers falling in street fights. Mothers rationing rice. Children learning revolution before ABCs. What Phoenix rock? Not our eagle sherds of federation. Warlords in Vasilla. A strong man in the ruins. Authoritarian velvet or iron fist outright. Worse than now? History nods. France's Napoleon, Russia's Stalin, Cuba's, Castro's, the pattern's coda. Revolutions don't end tidy. They scar. American exceptionalism. A myth, brittle as the Tsar's teacup. France preened as civilization's torch. Russia thundered, empire eternal. Cuba partied, prosperous, all ash. We're sunk deeper, gap gaping, wider than 89's estates. Gridlock grosser than 17's Duma dither. Trust trampled, flatter than 58's rigged rolls. The pattern? It doesn't parley with, but we're different. It just proceeds. So dodge the blade. Reform before the rain. Bridge the chasm. Tax codes that claw back the horde. Not the humble. Gut the graft. Term limits like guillotines for lifers. Lobbyists leashed or lashed. Rebuild the middle. Debts discharged. Homes hammered. Affordable wages wedded to worth. Restore the oath. Institutions ironed impartial. Truth, a town square, not a trench. Possible? The slimmest thread civil society stitching what suits shred. Voters vigilant, not vitriolic. History shrugs, but hell it's our shrug too. Ignore the signs. You're Louis at the fete, flute to lips. Nicholas at tea. Saucer steady. Batista at the vault. Counting ghosts? Eyes open now. That's the first win. Stage 5, Knox insistent. Mobs marshalling. Left's lions, or right's hounds, or some rogue pack unbound. When the streets fill, the feeds frenzy. The old order cracks you'll crave the why, the how, it hid. The hidden exit. History's the map. Blood faded, but true. Grab it tight. Study the scars. Before the fire, authors are in. If this lit a fire, not the bad kind. The urgent hit. Subscribe. More blueprints from the brink. More warnings, woven tight. Your move, America. Clock's ticking.